Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is Monday review time, and it is Monday after the weekend that was, and what a weekend it was. Friday morning, everyone on social media, I'm sure, was looking forward to Charlton at home on Saturday, the final home fixture of the season. Last chance to see the boys in action live for plenty, us included, because we will not be travelling to Blackpool away. And yeah, no inclination of what was to come a few hours later, and the bombshell that was the announcement at around dinner time that Steve Lovell had left the club with immediate effect. It certainly conjured up plenty of questions amongst the fan base, the Gills supporters, the Gills faithful, none of which have really been answered since, and we're now Monday, obviously 3 days later. Still nothing really in terms of concrete information from the club, so we're all still a bit in the dark. We can all surmise and estimate that obviously this meeting took place between Steve Lovell and Mr Scally Friday afternoon, and whatever was said, we can only assume that Steve Lovell didn't agree with what he was being told for the plans moving forward for the football club, and more importantly perhaps himself. So we can only take an educated guess that he decided to leave immediately rather than wait or be pushed. So Mark Patterson was in charge for the game on Saturday. A game that really almost became like a second thought and an afterthought to everything else that had been going on. And I've been quite vocal on a couple of radio stations, a podcast and our own YouTube channel over the last couple of days, still trying to get my head around it, why it's happened, how it's happened. But again, it all comes back to information, and without the club coming out and clarifying everything properly, then we're all in the dark, and we all are just guessing and estimating, like I've said. So it's not a great situation. As I've already mentioned, I've had my say on it on various social media outlets and different places, and I haven't changed my mind. The timing stinks. Could this meeting not have just waited until after Blackpool, so that Steve Lovell would have got to have his final home game, have his lap of appreciation, his lap of honour, whatever you want to call it, his final moment with the Gills fans? Only one person can answer that, and that's Paul Scally. But until he puts out a statement, if he does, we're not going to know anything for sure. We all have our opinions on this football club employing legends or ex-players or past heroes or whatever you want to label them, but I think this one's been treated particularly shoddily. I think it's been handled really poorly. And as I've mentioned already, it seems like one step forward and a couple of steps back, because bridges has been built regarding between the fans and the club in terms of the season ticket announcement just a couple of weeks ago. Up until the last couple of weeks, we'd generally been in a decent run of form prior to Peterborough, but we've dropped off a little bit again, and currently sit, I think, 19th in the form table. But yeah, it's just disappointing end to a home campaign, which has been disappointing on the whole. You can't dress that up. We've not been good enough at home, and I think points-wise, it's our worst ever season at the Priestfield since the days of the back-end days of the Championship era. So clearly we have to improve that, and some fans will say, well, the home form's so poor that when the away form under Steve Lovell eventually dropped off, then we'd get relegated. But you can look at it the other way and say that he'd maintained the away form for 2 seasons, and if the home form had picked up, then where would we be and what could we achieve? But obviously we'll never find out now, because Steve has gone. Mark Patterson has made it clear he doesn't want the job full time, but he does go on to say that something needs to be done quickly, and a new man needs to be in place sharpish, because obviously it's a big summer with a lot of players out of contract. And this is the quote from Patto. as you can see from the graphic, Mark Patterson says the sooner it is sorted out the better, because we've got players who are out of contract, players who the club would want to retain, and any incoming players, we need to give them the opportunity to come, because if not, they go. Players don't wait. Why would they wait? Agree with everything he's saying. It's all right saying we can take our time and make sure that we make the right appointment, because we've been down this road before as a football club far too often in recent years. After Martin Allen, after Peter Taylor, after Justin Edinburgh, after Adrian Pennock, after Peter Taylor briefly again, after Steve Lovell. It's somewhat of a revolving door in recent years at the football club, and I think it needs to stop. We need to find some sort of longevity, some sort of continuity, some sort of consistency. Otherwise, I fear that in 12, 14, 16, 18 months, we're going to be back here again. And in terms of candidates, we all know there's one name that's at the forefront of the betting market, and that's Steve Evans. And for the very reasons I've just said, that we need to sort out the longevity, the continuity, the consistency, the stability. I don't want us to touch him with a barge pole, a very long, rusty barge pole. I don't want him anywhere near our football club. And I completely understand that there's plenty of fans that are more than happy for him to come in. But I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. He has such a long list of misdemeanours, suspensions, bans, touchline fracas, FA hearings. If you only have to look at his Wikipedia page to find out that he was twice suspended from Boston United when he was with manager, something to do with contract irregularities. So is that the type of man we want running the football club? And I get that everyone deserves a second chance, but the list is endless. It goes on and on and on. On top of that, he has history with Andy Hessenthaler. For me, one of the greatest ever players to pull on a Gillingham football shirt. Accused him of all sorts years ago before dropping the accusation for one reason or another. So then you have to ask the question, why was the accusation made in the first place if he was so readily and quick to drop it afterwards? Like I say, if he's appointed and he comes in as boss, I will still go and support the football team. I will still go to games, but it is an appointment that I simply cannot back and I cannot endorse at all. And like I've said, plenty of others want him in. That's fine. Got no issue with that at all. But it's not for me. I just think there's so many more candidates out there that have got decent enough CVs at this level. The likes of Darryl Clark, 4 promotions with Bristol Rovers in recent seasons, and it was only in the last few months that he struggled there. Maybe taken him as far as he could, hit the ceiling, so to speak. Paul Hurst did an immaculate job at Shrewsbury last season, got him to Wembley twice on a shoestring budget before probably not being given enough time at Ipswich, but such is the nature of the modern game. Mark Warburton done well a few seasons ago at this level with Brentford, got them promoted. And I've said a name that as a bigger price for me, I wouldn't mind having a look at Daryl McMahon, the ex-Ebbsfleet manager, who'd done a really good job down there at Stonebridge Road. Left end of 2018 because of all sorts going on behind the scenes, of lack of money, owner not paying the players or the staff. Don't know all the ins and outs, don't want to know. But I think Daryl McMahon done a really good job at that level. And if we was to go down the non-league route, I think he'd be one that would be well worth a look, more than someone like Jay Saunders, who maybe a couple of seasons ago I wouldn't have been averse to, but I think his reputation's taken a dent in the last couple of years. Left Maidstone and they were struggling, and in fairness to him, they've not picked up. They've probably got worse since he left the club, and they've been relegated by a distance. And I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, oh, it's Maidstone and I'm happy and this and that. It's besides the point. It's about getting the right man in for Gillingham Football Club to move them forward to the next level, whatever that is. So for me, if I had to pick some names, it'd have to come from Clark, Hurst, Warburton or McMahon. All good managers, all good CVs, none of them with the histrionics and ego and baggage that Steve Evans comes with. But yeah, there was a game Saturday, which has almost been forgotten about, and we lost 2-0 to a very decent Charlton side, a Charlton side that's going to be a massive threat in the playoffs. They were minus their star man, Lyle Taylor, who was rested through injury, but they were still far too good for us. We had a go, started off brightly first half. Tarvon Campbell unlucky with a shot on the turn early on, but from the moment they took the lead, Charlton, they went through the gears and they kept us at arm's length defensively, and they're just a very, very solid and a very, very good League One outfit. And like I say, you'd have to fancy them in the playoffs. They've only lost once in the last 8 or 9 games, and that was against an Oxford side that's flying. Yeah, they have quality all over the pitch. Joe Aribo was first class, works his socks off the ball and defensively. He's got 2 good feet, pace, he's a good size, scored a good goal. They've got Veta Kelly up front who led the line, runs in behind, comes short, causes problems. Josh Cullen, first goal for the club, took it really well. Johnny Williams said on the Matchday Live, shouldn't be playing at League One level, he should be in the top end of the Championship or even the Premier League. He's an absolute class act. Darren Prattley, bags of experience. And in the centre-back, Sarr, they've got an absolute man-mountain of a defender who can actually play. Took a couple of free kicks, all right, didn't do too much with them, but clearly has ability for a defender. Huge, absolutely huge. Very imposing. And like I say, they kept us at arm's length defensively. We chucked on our top scorer, Tom Eaves, at the break, and he worked really hard, and he almost fashioned himself a couple of half chances. One that comes to mind was the overhead kick that went wide, but we didn't really threaten enough. And we was always playing catch up from the moment we conceded the first goal, but we wasn't poor by any stretch of the imagination. And sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say the opposition were better than us, and Charlton were better than us on the day, as much as that pains me to say. Josh Parker come on at the end for them. Our ex-player, for some reason, don't understand it why some of the Gills fans were booing him. Did absolutely nothing wrong with us. Joined us at probably our lowest ebb in the last 5 years. Scored the all-important goal against Port Vale on his debut that effectively kept us in the division that season. Season after that, formed a great partnership with Tom Eaves, and I think they scored 32 goals between them in a side that wasn't emphatic in front of goal, yet a minority of the Gills fans around us decided it was a good idea to abuse him, which I really don't understand. I find it brain dead. But again, each to their own, but it's not for me. But yeah, fair play to Josh Parker. It was a move that come out of the blue in January. It certainly wasn't one that I expected, and fair play to him. He's managed to get a move from a side that was bottom third of the league to a side that's in the top third in the league, so why wouldn't he go? And all the best to him, and all the best to Charlton in the playoffs. We have one more game left this season. It almost pales into insignificance with all the news that's been going on over the last few days, but myself and Boz will be back Thursday for a weekly roundup. We may have news on a new manager then. Looking at the betting odds tonight, Paul Rayner, who is Steve Evans' number 2 historically, I think, suddenly seems to have come into odds on with some betting firms, Sky Bet and Bet Victor. I think he's into about 5 to 6, so that's a weird one. He was 16 to 1 with Sky Bet this morning. I think a few people had asked on request to bet type things on social media, and Steve Evans is on the drift to 11 to 8. The names I want have all gone on the drift as well, so are we now looking at the route of Paul Rayner as manager? Another name mentioned today was Glyn Hodges, who's the assistant manager at Wimbledon. It's not for me. It's a very underwhelming link. This is a side that were adrift at Christmas. Granted, he's done a great job next to Wally Downs, but they're below us in the league, so it's not one that I'd be extremely or remotely excited about. So are we going down the route of Paul Rayner as manager and the Scottish man as director of football? Only time will tell. So we might have more news on Thursday. We will go through anything that has developed. We will talk about Blackpool ahead of the final game of the campaign. But as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for continuing to like, share, retweet, comment, subscribe and all that you do. And until next time, up the Gills.